Chapter 31.
War and Peace. As Kai stood up, he quickly grabbed the sword Ragnbjörg had given him and made his way to the outside square, where men, both Langer and Traust, were battling in a barbaric bloodbath. Smoke and fire swirled around him with the sounds of screaming pain and shouts of rage. These sounds, combined with the smell of ash and the scene of squirting blood from blade wounds, made Kai step into a dreamy, surreal state. Suddenly, there came a deafening over his ears as he stood in silence, contemplating the insanity of war. But before time and distraction would claim him, a sudden push came from behind as Ragnbjörg yelled in fury. "Less wise must be the tree of battle than to me would some the leader of men, if forth he lets one brother fare, when he of the other the slayer is." And with this sudden burst of energy and motivation from having heard Ragnbjörg quote Havamal, Kai found himself screaming at the top of his lungs, the loudest he had ever screamed in his life, ready to meet his death, eyeing the Langers with war paint before him, not knowing whether they were enemy or kin, but knowing that, regardless, he would refuse to leave his life to chance. Kai began stabbing and swinging his sword against any blue tunic he came across, feeling the adrenaline pump through his veins. Suddenly, upon looking to his right, he saw, in his peripheral vision, a grey chunk of metal move swiftly towards the side of his head. The world shuddered and folded inward. Sound became a long, hollow roar before turning into nothing. Kai felt himself falling through smoke and silence, the heat of battle fading into a chill like winter's breath. Shapes flickered at the edge of his mind, shapes of torches, faces, the glint of Ragnbjörg's eyes, until they, too, dissolved into the void. The clang of iron became the ring of distant bells, and the stench of blood turned to the faint smell of herbs and firewood. Somewhere in that space between life and dream, voices began to rise. Soft at first, then steady, like waves breaking on a shore too far away to see. Man, in all his knowing, lives but once, and it must puzzle the wise and the foolish alike what power drives him to the blade at the cost of his own life or the lives of others. The insanity of war is this, that the spoils of war, meant to serve as a kind of hope and life support to each respective tribe, will, like the people within the tribes themselves, eventually spoil. Is this not the story of our beloved Beowulf himself, who, after slaying the dragon to protect his people, also laid down to die? A familiar female voice could be heard whispering as Kai found himself awake in Ragnbjörg's hut. Sure, he laid down and he died," a deeper and recognizable voice was heard responding. "But why do you neglect the gods and the afterlife? Why do you neglect legacy and glory? What are we sitting here doing today? We are here discussing the heroic triumph of Beowulf in protecting his people. Even Beowulf himself understood this when he had a barrow built by the sea to be a guide for sailors, ensuring his people would always remember him. And so this courageous tale not only continues to live, but continues to press in on all those it is passed down to in such a way that they, too, become courageous." "Yes, Ragnbjörg," Bodil's voice responded. "But when does it end?" "Ah, but you're being but a woman, my love. Such is the condition of man, the sad state of the human spirit, and this will never change. It will end when violence has served its purpose, and it will begin again when peace fails to serve the same end that violence does." "What if I told you, my love, that one man should die for the people so that the tribe does not perish?" Bodil replied. "Ah, now there you go again, speaking of the one mighty and strong in such a mysterious way. My dear, Whoever the one mighty and strong is, it is not like his life is sufficient to stop the revolving door of bloodshed. No, my dear, it is to help shed further blood, blood shed by trousts against any and all who seek to harm her. But suppose, my love, for only just a moment, that a willing sacrifice done not for the glory of Valhalla, but for the love of man. Suppose this sacrifice could serve as a kind of supernatural reminder that peace is possible when both parties partake in that same path. Ah, love, my sweet Bodil, hear, hear. Such a world you conjure is merely fantasy, it's ideal, but it is not practical. If I hadn't known any better, I'd say you're a follower of that Christ God. Ragnbjörg burst out, cheeky and sneering. Cough, cough. Kai found himself hacking as the conversation in the other room came to an abrupt halt, while footsteps began to draw near. "Ah, my boy, you are awake. How are you feeling?" Ragnbjörg exclaimed, entering the room Kai was in. What happened?" Kai asked, perplexed. "What happened?" Ragnbjörg continued in excitement. "What happened is that after you saved my wife and child from being slain by a langur, the 50 berserkers who were in the king's hall attending your thing pounced on the langurs in the town square and pushed most into a full-fledged retreat. Unfortunately, you did not see the whole battle because you were knocked over the head by one of the enemies. But fear not, Inguz, I took care of him swiftly." Kai remained stupefied, split in his mind and heart between gratitude for having had his life saved, while still uneasy about the reality that he had himself taken lives. "Here's the thing, Inguz," Ragnbjörg continued. "The town is calling another thing on your behalf. Having seen you fight valiantly for our tribe in the King's Hall, there is talk of promoting you to the warrior class." Kai paused, still trying to regain his senses. "But," Ragnbjörg went on, his eyes suddenly darkening, "emotions are still high for many trousts who lost family to the langurs, and there are people in our village who would rather see you join your kin in Hades, particularly the berserkers." Kai sat in silence. "I need you to lay low for a few days, Inguz, at least until the tribe's high emotions have subsided. You'll have to stay in the hut and continue to pretend to be unconscious. When I think the time is right, I'll notify the king you are awake and will call your thing. Can you do that for me?" Ragnbjörg asked, with an almost pleading look. "Yes," Kai responded half-heartedly. "Very good," Ragnbjörg said. "Now get some rest, brother. You've earned it." And without giving him time to respond, Ragnbjörg walked into the other room to rejoin Bodil. Everything, the weight of all things, seemed to come to Kai at once. The blood, the honor, the guilt, pressed in on him. Just before he began fading back into a dazed sleep, his thoughts were of nothing noble. They were thoughts fixated on the faces he'd slain, as the same recurring question began surfacing and resurfacing over and over again. Which god had claimed them?